And polls have just closed in South Korea and counting has begun to determine who the country's next president will be. Our East Asia correspondent Kathleen Calderwood is in Seoul and she joins me now. Kathleen, the polls have closed, but I see that exit poll results are coming in at the moment. What can you tell us?
Look, there's a couple of different exit polls being reported at the moment, Garish, and they are indicating that the opposition leader from the Democratic Party, Lee Jae-myung, will win the presidency. So we're here at a watch party. It's clearly a strong Democratic Party crowd. So there was a lot of cheers of jubilation when the polls closed to see those exit polls. Of course, his main competitor is Kim Moon-soo. He's from the People Power Party, which is, of course, Yoon Song-yeol's party. Now, he is quite conservative. He's considered close to Yoon. He was the Labour minister in the last administration. So while there's several candidates, it has largely been a competition between those two men.
And Kathleen, this election is happening in the shadow of the martial law chaos that forced the ousting of President Yoon Song-yeol. How big a factor was this for voters?
Look, it really does seem like it's been a referendum on Yoon Song-yeol's actions and, of course, his party, as well as we've been speaking to people here around Seoul. They've all brought up their concerns about the strength of South Korea's democracy. There's been concerns voiced to us about communism coming into South Korea. So even those who stand by Yoon Song-yeol have concerns about preserving democracy here in South Korea. But the other big thing has been the economy. A lot of people talking to us about their concerns about making a living, and quite a few people saying to us that they think that there have been less visitors, less tourists to South Korea since the martial law declaration. So here's a few of those insights.
We're all having hard times. We're in a very dangerous moment, I think. There are less jobs and business is not booming.
The economy and getting over the rebellion. That's the most important thing we should solve.
Yoon Suk-yeol was unlawfully impeached after the martial law, and I think Kim Moon-soo will save all of us, and President Yoon as well. So I came here to support him. I came here for my future. I work properly. I want to earn properly as well. But if Korea becomes communized, everything will have been in vain. So I came here to support the democracy of Korea.
Now, of course, Kathleen, you have the opposition candidate there, Lee Jae-myung, who is leading in the exit polls, campaigning with a bulletproof vest and still facing criminal trials, while Kim Moon-soo was initially defending the martial law declaration. This has not really been politics as usual for South Korea, has it?
Look, it certainly hasn't, Garish. Of course, the circumstances in which it arose were very unusual. In fact, it was exactly 6 months ago today that Yoon Song-yeol made that declaration of martial law. We saw those incredible scenes of lawmakers here, in some cases climbing over the walls into the National Assembly so that they could vote. That included Lee Jae-myung, who live streamed himself climbing over the fence to get into the National Assembly so that the opposition-controlled parliament could vote that declaration down. They did succeed with that. Yoon Song-yeol lifted the declaration after only 6 hours. But of course, by then the wheels had been set in motion. The damage was done. We then saw the parliament vote to impeach him a couple of weeks later. Then, of course, people might remember in early January he was holed up in his residence for well over a week while he was trying to wait out an arrest warrant. So the Constitutional Court has upheld that impeachment. That, of course, is what led us here today. He was removed from office in April, but he's still facing a trial for insurrection and charges around abuse of power. Secondly, as you mentioned, in terms of the campaign itself, it's been far from straightforward. We saw the People Power Party seesawing on exactly who it would put forward to run for president because, as I mentioned, Kim Moon-soo is considered close to Yoon Song-yeol. It took him a long time to apologise for the martial law declaration. He was the Labour minister under Yoon Song-yeol. And then on the other side, we have seen Lee Jae-myung, who survived survived a very serious assassination attempt early last year. He's been campaigning wearing a bulletproof vest behind bulletproof glass. It's quite really a shocking thing to see in a democratic country like South Korea. And he has his own legal troubles that he's facing. We saw one of the high courts here overturn an earlier decision that cleared him of an election law violation. So that case was delayed. The retrial, I should say, was delayed until after that election. So I guess one of the big questions will be whether that now goes ahead, or if he is elected as president, if he's entitled to some kind of immunity to that case. But all that is to say, there's still a lot of time to run on this saga. We, of course, still have Yoon Song-yeol going through the courts. So the next president will have quite a job trying to restore calm here in South Korea.
Yes, with so much political upheaval there over the past 6 months, and we can kind of get a sense of that behind you there, Catherine. What would be the main challenges facing the new president?
I think that probably number one thing is to help the country move on from this saga. It has brought up dark memories of South Korea's authoritarian past, as we heard in the package earlier. For those who lived through the authoritarian era in South Korea, who lived through martial law declarations where people were killed, this has really stirred up a lot of trauma and memory for them. So on the other hand, it has been a reassurance, I guess, for the country, for the strength of this democracy, that for the last 6 months these protests and rallies have continued largely in a very peaceful manner. But it has highlighted a lot of polarisation, deep divisions here in South Korea, so the next president will really have to work on uniting the country once again. Of course, the next big thing is dealing with the economy. As I said, that's been one of the really big main issues on the minds of voters, and their big job will be to begin those negotiations with the United States. Donald Trump's tariffs included 25% on South Korea. Seoul was one of the first administrations to start talking with Washington, but the first thing will really be cutting a deal with the Trump administration, trying to get the best deal for South Korea, because the US really is the most important ally to South Korea. They have tens of thousands of American troops here on South Korean soil. So managing that relationship and the broader, instability in this region will be high on the agenda for the next president.
Okay, East Asia correspondent Kathleen Calderwood, really appreciate your reporting there from Seoul. Thank you very much.